Get ready for an enlightening discussion as we're joined by William Brown, a seasoned expert in the renovation lending industry who's here to shed light on pivotal changes and challenges within the industry. In this episode, we dissect recent proposed adjustments to the HUD 203K program and the potential effects from contractor selection and project timelines to administrative and financial hurdles. William will share his insights on the market's direction and provide valuable advice on the importance of contractor vetting, proactive timeline management, and strategic handling of construction costs. This episode is packed with expertise and critical analysis of the complex details of renovation lending.
So for consumers, if you want to do a renovation loan, or you homeowners, you want to renovate your house, be comfortable picking and vetting your contractor, trust your gut, do your background check, call their references, look them up on social media, because if they're really good, they post their work on their Facebook or Instagram, Twitter, TikTok page. They post their stuff because they're proud of it. I still think that $50,000 to me seems arbitrary because it doesn't seem like it tracks with the actual cost of doing the work in the average home. With limiting the amount of inspections, it pushes the interval out and it increases the probability your project's going to slow down and grind to a halt because it removes a sense of urgency.
All right, I'd like to welcome everybody to the podcast today. We're joined by William Brown, a well-known expert in the 203K industry, and him and I are going to be pouring through some of the changes that have been recently proposed on updates to the HUD 203K renovation or rehabilitation mortgage program. So, William, thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate you jumping on the podcast. Why don't you give everybody a little background on your experience and where you've been, especially as it pertains to renovation lending and the 203K loan program.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for having me, Sean. So I have been in the mortgage business since the beginning of the Great Collapse, 2006. Prior to that, I've done a lot of different things. I've built houses. I've worked on construction crews. I've done remodeling. In high school, my grandma was a realtor. I was her handyman. So, we did all the stuff for the houses that she was selling or renting. So I've been around doing the trades for a while. I've been in the mortgage business since, like I said, 2006, maybe 2004. And I've been doing renovation loans since about 2008. Started as an originator and then realized that on the lending side, there was some serious lack in the back office support for frontline salespeople with these products that have lots of moving parts and lots of things that I called non-revenue generating activities that have to be done. So the question is, since I didn't come at this from a mortgage business, is, well, who's going to do that work? Well, it can't be the guy chasing bright, shiny things, because I did that for 2 years. You're a one-armed paper hanger trying to get your Ks. So busy working on your Ks that when you close them all, you have no pipeline because you haven't been building your pipeline because you're so busy working on your Ks that you were trying to close. So I started at Stonegate Mortgage with the idea that we could fund a separate little work unit by sharing the basis points of the revenue of 203K loans. And so that's what I've done for the last 12, 14 years. First for Stonegate, which was acquired by Home Point. And then I replicated it at Finance of America Mortgage, where we ran for about 8 years before they went under. And we closed. We were in the top 10 of 203K lenders most of the time. We were closing about 200 to 300 units a year and then managing the draws and the escrows in-house. So we managed the whole thing cradle to grave. So we've seen a lot of the stuff that can happen and then tried to design a process that a consumer would find palatable and would be able to do, and that supported contractors and met the needs of salespeople, whether they were originators or realtors. So we've done a lot of 203Ks as well as a lot of Fannie Mae's conventional product. So we've been around the renovation space for a while. And I think that we were successful. Most of the people that I know that know me would prefer doing business with my group than perhaps another lender, just for the experience and the sort of ease of use. But I think the program itself is kind of clunky, and you actually have to make some adjustments and come up with some strategies, maybe specific to your market or how your people work, to make it flow better for everybody. Realizing that at the end of the day, it's a renovation project involving humans who need materials and labor, and you can't control all those things.
Thoroughly agree there. And as we kind of dive into this a little bit, I think it's good we give some context to what we're talking about to the audience here. And earlier this year, I want to say it was around March or April, HUD put out a RFI, and that particular RFI was to collect information and feedback from the public. So that would include, lenders and homeowners, contractors, HUD consultants, all the home advocacy groups, and how the 203K program could really be better, and they were really looking to identify barriers that were limiting the participation in the program, from lenders. So, whether a lender is participating in it or they're offering the program, overall, what can they do to enhance or to improve these types of opportunities? And, HUD went, posted on the Federal Register, gathered a bunch of feedback, and then more recently helped provide some, I guess they summarized that, they reviewed it, and then announced some proposed changes. And those proposed changes, I want to say it was about six changes, and I've got them listed here. Everything from increasing the maximum allowable rehabilitation cost on the limited program from $35,000 to $50,000 to $70,000 in some high cost areas. That was the first one. Number two, increasing the number of days that the borrower has to complete all the repairs. If they're occupying the property during the rehab period, going from 15 to 30 days before categorizing it as major rehabilitation. So what they're saying there is, hey, if you can't occupy the property, we're going to extend it from 15 days to 30 days before we classify it as major rehabilitation. The third one being allowing the consultant to increase fees, or include their fees, I should say, in both the 203K and standard programs. Fourth being increasing the allowable rehabilitation period for the standard from 6 to 10 months. The increase in allowable of the initial draw for material costs up to 75% versus the current amount at 50% today. And then increasing a lot of the consultants' fees, which they can charge. So a lot of changes in there. And just really love to kind of get your first initial reaction, William. I know we talked a little bit offline on some of these, and we both have our opinions, but where do you think is a good place to dive in and start on these?
Well, we could start with like the changes to the limited, because I think that increasing the amount that could be done, and I think some of that data HUD should have had from their opportunity zone if they did any Ks in opportunity zones, which actually was a higher limit, not quite to 50. Most opportunity zones, it pushed your limited up to the mid 40s, what you could do. But I still think that $50,000 to me seems arbitrary, because it doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like it tracks with the actual cost of doing the work, in the average home. So whether your home is a $250,000, if you go $250,000 to $500,000 range for average home prices, to remodel a kitchen in a house, you're going to be half of your budget, if not all of your budget, immediately. Mm-hmm. That's just the kitchen, right? Which is still just cosmetic. If I just take out the cabinets and replace the cabinets and the flooring and the plumbing and, the appliances, I'm over $50,000. So it seems like they might have gone further had they done an analysis of the actual cost, and maybe pick the top 20 MSAs. There's remodeling data out there, and figure out what does it actually cost to remodel a kitchen, and then where's the average, and what are the things that people are doing that actually add value. And I think it's kitchens, bathrooms, and master bedroom suites. And then that doesn't even touch the maintenance. So on my $300,000 house, if I need to put a roof on, well, that's $15,000, maybe $20,000 for the roof. Mm-hmm. Okay. If I need to upgrade my storm windows to make my house more energy efficient, that's another 10, 15. So that's 20. I haven't done anything structural yet. Right. I'm still outside.
Would you say this program does not perform well in a seller's market, where there's a lot of demand for the house and you got multiple bids, people want to close fast? Would you say there's a correlation between, this program's success and the what the market is, how the market is really performing?
Yeah, I think so because people want to close fast
Hmm.
for a variety of reasons. And my program has a lot of delays built into it, right? And so just the fact that I have to get a bid, even if I did a limited and I didn't need a HUD consultant, but I still got to get a contractor bid. If I can't get it today, then every day is a day that I've lost.
Hmm.
So in the best world, I have a 30-day contract, but I didn't know I needed a K, and there's multiple offers out there. I'm already over asking on my bid.
Hmm.
And then I need to put a roof on the house. Everything else is fine, but the roof failed the inspection. Okay. So, I'm 10 days in or 7 days in. I find out I need a new roof. And then I find out I need a new lender. Right. And so then I gotta simultaneously engage a roofing contractor to come on and give me a bid. It's Tuesday. He can get there on Thursday. Okay. That's 2 days, but I don't get the bid till Friday or Monday. So that's a week. Okay, cool. In that same week, I got to find a 203K lender and get pre-qualified again. Okay, so that's 2 days there finding the lender, I have all my docs, but I got to get all the stuff to them, and I got to, they got to do all their stuff, and the loan officer, he can do an immediate pre-qual, but he can't get it to underwriting because the underwriter won't underwrite it until I have a bid,
And you got to get an appraisal.
and then I got to get the appraisal before I can't get the appraisal until I get the bid. So, all those things make it really challenging in a seller's market.
Hmm.
If your seller is willing to wait because they knew you needed a roof and you bid over asking, I mean, 203K is a marvelous solution to bidding over asking because we use the after improved value,
Hmm.
right? So that often mitigates the expense of bidding over asking because I'm actually buying equity and I'm buying value, right? But the time frame makes it excruciating because we forget the average American has no idea how to do a renovation on their house. And even if they've done it before, every house is different.
Well, let's keep going here on the pre-closing side. Leading up to the hey, winner chicken dinner. We got a closed loan, right? If we think of leading up to that, and what kind of advice would be valuable for HUD to know? If you were the voice of all the lenders out there, what do you think is kind of missing in their understanding leading up to the closing?
I don't know, man. I looked at the new guidelines. I like the fact that when you're using a consultant, their fees are more in line with what, like, they're not necessarily working for free, but there's still not enough HUD consultants.
Mm-hmm.
So that in some markets, that's going to slow them down. And usually where there's markets where there's lots of renovation activity, there may be more consultants, but they're busier.
Mm-hmm.
So there's still not enough.
Delays the closing.
Delays the closing. And then if we have to go any revisions into the work write-up, that delays the closing because if I'm out doing inspections, I'm doing my paperwork in the evening or in the morning before I go out to do my inspections. So if my lender sends me the work write-up and it needs revisions, this is Tuesday, I'll get it back to you by the end of the day tomorrow or maybe Thursday morning. I can't do it now because I'm under a house, you know? So it's kind of resource management. It's an interesting puzzle. I mean, we did a bunch of them, so they can be done. It's not like it's impossible, but you have to start out with the right expectations, and they're not going to work in every market,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they're just too long. The market just doesn't wait for it.
Well, we've kind of taken a step more into the post-closing um, framework or processes, and as we kind of dive back into the proposed changes, you mentioned about, being upside down or, going sideways, fire the contractor and they already have the money and they ran off with the money, right? I think you actually made the comment, the contractor runs off with the money, and that can only happen if they have the money in advance, right? But one of the changes here that's proposed is increasing the initial draw amount up to 75% of the material costs versus 50% under the existing policy. And when the risk team at Langrilla looked at this, I palmed ahead all the way around the table going, that's a bad idea. And I was wondering, what's your take on that, with putting money out there, more money out there that can potentially be at risk and harmful to both the owner and the lender.
Yeah, that's challenging too because he needs some money to get started,
Mm-hmm.
but it needs to be materials and not his operating expenses, right? So you're back to contractor selection. Is the guy big enough to carry some of this? If I supply material costs, then I should be paying the vendor, right? Directly. That would mitigate the contractor taking the money,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I think that process would have to be built out on the draw admin side or the lender side, and with the borrower and the builder up front is, hey, I'm going to need a list of your suppliers because when your loan closes, we will fund up to 75% of your materials, but we pay the material supplier directly.
If you need it.
If you need it, right? And then we need to have it clear, and we worked hard at doing this to make sure that everybody knew what it took to get paid. So you want to tell everybody up front and tell them again and again, here's how you get a draw. Here's the process. Here's the time frame. Here's what I need.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so then the contractor and the borrower are responsible. So you have a draw request. Okay, it needs to be signed. You sign it. The borrower signs it. Right. We all agree what we're paying.
All agree.
If there's a HUD consultant, everybody agrees. This is what we're paying. But that money should go to the supplier. If it's for materials, it should go to the supplier.
And what happens if it doesn't go to the supplier? Let everybody know why that's important to go to the supplier.
Well, if it doesn't go to the supplier, then I'm counting on the contractor to manage the money.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so since if he's buying it on sale, I should be the beneficiary of him getting it on sale.
Mm-hmm.
If he gets a volume discount, I should be the beneficiary of the volume discount. In other words, if he buys 4,000 square feet of lumber and gets a 10% discount, he's going to bill me and take the 10%, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's his override. Well, no, that's actually, I should get the benefit. The consumer should get, if I'm spending money for material, I get the discounts and I get the rewards points because it's my money.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like in Menards, if Menards gives you 11% off, right?
Mm-hmm.
They give you 11% mail-in rebate, right? And so if my builder goes and he spends $4,000 of my money.
Otherwise, they shouldn't be asking for money up front. They should be covering it themselves, right?
Cover it themselves, and then you get the rebate, right? And so that's why I think it's important. I'm not so much put off by the amount as I'm concerned about a process to manage that amount and not just pay it to the consumer. I'm not so much worried about them taking off and running with the money. I think that happens, but I think it's not that big of a risk. But I am concerned, like I said, about the volume discounts, that where that goes, because that has value. So if it's a $4,400 discount, I mean a $440 discount on a $4,000 purchase, I should get that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I agree. I mean, what do we see? I'm curious on your opinion. Why do these projects? What would, if you had to quantify it? What would be the number one reason why a project has an issue, right? And that issue could be not getting completed on time, not getting completed with the amount. What is the when you see an issue on a 203K loan? What are those traditionally themed out as?
So we tried, as far as the cost, we try to have a contingency reserve for cost overruns.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we might have to look and see, is 10%, 15%, is that reasonable still? Like, what are the cost overruns? And now we're not back to pre-COVID, but we're closer as far as material costs, because they were through the roof the first year of COVID. Like I had so many projects, they were just over budget because that 2x4, instead of costing $12, it cost $22.
Yep.
Right. And so that was crazy. But I think we're past that. But you didn't even look at the contingency reserve. I think some of the burden has to be on the contractor to have vendor relationships that can sort of control his prices. So he's not as subject to the market. And I don't know, a lot of the guys that work on Ks aren't big enough to do that. So then, by the time they quote their price, they quote the material costs in, well, this is December 18th, they quote material costs, but the loan closes January 21st. So there's a month lag there. My costs were accurate when I quoted December 8th, I worked it up the first 2 weeks of December. My costs were accurate, but by the time I'm into the third week of January, I'm a little under.
Mm-hmm.
fuel prices, delivery costs, material costs, shortages, changes because I couldn't get this. I had to use the comparable product, whatever. So, I think the contractors need to be cognizant of the time frame so they can do a better bid, right? So we need to be telling them, okay, this loan is likely to close in the middle of January. First week of December, we're not likely to close until the end of January. So when you prepare your bid, can you factor in changes to material costs? Is it going to be a percent? What do you ask your suppliers? What do they see? What are the historic trends? Do they have any idea?
Build
And
it
it
into
may
your
not get
pricing.
them a fixed answer, but it just start people thinking about the pricing issues. And then sometimes I think they don't finish on time because of material delays. So when you're looking at your bid, you're trying to figure out, is this off the rack stuff at Lowe's, Home Depot, Menards, Super 8? Like, can they just go get this building material, or do they have to special order it?
With some lead time.
Yeah, what's the lead time on getting that?
Yeah.
Right. And so if it's long lead time, those are things that definitely should be ordered as soon as the loan closes. And if I can pay up to 75% of the materials, if the builder hasn't ordered it prior to close because he didn't want to float the money, then I have to be ready. Then we need to get lined up so that you can special order this on December 22nd or 23rd, whatever, as soon as the funds are available after the loan closes, because it takes 8 weeks to get it. That's what they're projecting right now. So there's a lot.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, there's a lot of planning and forethought that has to go into making this project actually work well for people. And then he's got to have labor, and there's stuff that's going to happen. It's going to get sick, going to nail his hand to the floor, fall off a ladder. Those are going to be inevitable human things that happen that will delay your project.
Yeah, I really liked what you said in there about, consideration of time, and I think that's one of the main concerns of another lender that we went through this with, where, they felt that, getting 75% of all the material costs advanced, early on, really binds that owner to that contractor for the life of the project. And if they have any kind of disputes or, something happens, if that amount was made to the contractor for stuff that's going to be purchased late in the project, how do you recover those funds that a contractor has? And I love what you said about, hey, make it to the supplier directly. That way it's the owner's property, not the contractor during that long period of time. And, I think there's got to be just a better strategy, or at least some sort of strategy lenders take, like the one that you recommended, or, hey, you've got to document out what you need and why you need it, early on, especially if you're going to get it at such an early phase of the project. And the lender, is putting the borrower in a pretty tough spot, because it doesn't allow, if the contractor picks up extra work and stops showing up to the property, that puts everybody in jeopardy. Or if the contractor gets hit by a car, where's the money? Or if they don't like the quality of work that they're doing, that, there's this leverage or power dynamic that's changed when the contractor has money for work that they haven't done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So something around there, the 75% just really gets me concerned, because I don't think it needs to be that amount, and our team was, really adamant and like, that's a lot of money, because you're talking the entire project material cost to get in advance,
right,
not what's needed to get started.
Right. I mean, ideally, the contractor should at least have net 30 accounts or net 45 accounts with the building suppliers, right?
Right. Yeah.
Ideally, because then, I mean, it's a loan. He knows the money's really in the perfect world. The contractor needs to understand this is a mortgage. The funds are held by the lender. Once it's closed, the funds go into an escrow account. The borrower can't spend them. Buddy, all you need to do is show up and do your job. We will pay you. Mm-hmm. And here's what it takes to get you paid. So if you have 45 days, right, and you start on day one with just your money, but you put it on a Lowe's account, right, and you put $25,000 on your Lowe's account to rough in my addition, right? Or maybe it's 25, maybe it's not you, maybe the electrician and everybody's putting in, it's 25 to rough in the addition, get all the mechanicals and get everything in. Okay, well, we're going to have an inspection and we're going to verify that that's in. Then we'll start this draw process. It should take typically how many days? What are the documents that I need? And how are you going to get paid? Is it going to be a check, two-party check, or a wire? Mm-hmm. right? And so I think having people understand that process would then mitigate some of the feeling I got to get the money up front. Because if you know how to get the money up front, I'm saying, well, don't you have an account? Like I'm a consumer. I could go down to Menards. They would give me an account. They give me net 30 without even like they just check my credit. Right. And you're a builder and you can't do net 30 at Menards or Lowe's or Home Depot or the building supply, the lumber company or someplace. Like I don't get it. Right.
Yeah, I can understand maybe specialty, like stuff with long lead times. I'm getting custom countertops or something like that. That makes sense, right? But we have a kind of a running saying around here. We call that walking around money, right? Hey, here's your money to get started, and you really don't know where it ends, and puts the whole project at risk. So, what do you think about one of the things that also was kind of interesting to discuss was the extension from 6 months to 10 months on the standard program.
I think that's good.
I will, and I'll make the counter argument to that. I love it. I think it's good.
But I wouldn't tell the contractors.
I wouldn't tell you. You're spot on. It was, it's like when our team heard that and they were going through, and they're like, oh, they're just going to delay and they think they have more time. And it's like
Murphy's law, right? It's the job expands to fill all the available time. So I wouldn't tell, I think it's good from a lender perspective, but I wouldn't tell the contractor. I would still look at each job and I would allocate I would ask the builder, how long is it going to take you to do this? Yep. And if you told me something outrageous, I might call another builder and say, hey, I got this job. This is what the guy's doing. How long do you think it should take him to do it? Right. And I get a second opinion. And then we go back and say, hey, you know what? This is really not a 10-month job. Why is it going to take you 10 months? Right? You got to get it done in 4 or 5. Can you do that? And if you can't, then we have to be talking to the borrower and saying, hey, I don't know what your guy is planning, but we could rely on our expertise. We've been doing this for a long time. The time limit, you could build a new house in the time he's taking to remodel your kitchen and your bathroom. Okay.
Great point. Great point.
Just think about it from new construction. 10 months, you can build a house in 10 months. Okay. You can get it if it's totally flat and there's a slab, you might get it done in 6 months. Right.
I love that to be able to extend, throw 1 month extensions, but the more time you give people, the more they put it on the back burner, and especially the contractor. Mm-hmm. And time is your enemy, right. Time allows for cost increases or price increases. Time right. allows for
material shortages.
Weather issues, I kind of had my own personal, thoughts on that. But the more I heard from others, it was like, hey, maybe this isn't necessarily a great job. And if you can't figure it out in that period of time, it's probably more complicated than you should be getting into.
Right. Yeah. So no, I think the extension is good because what used to happen is we had to do monthly reports to HUD to tell them why our Ks weren't closed out in connection, in FHA connection, because there's a date. We put a date in there when the loan closes, when the work is done. And so 30 days after that date, we get an email from HUD asking about it. They want to know what's going on. So there's more administrative costs. So pushing it out to 10 months and having the lender still restrict it to 4 to 6, I think takes some of the administrative load off the lender. But again, I think it just comes down to how you manage your program and how you talk to your builders and your contractors, not yours, they're not mine, the lender, but they're people that are engaged by the borrower and what the borrower's expectations are. And people have tried different things. They've tried finding them, like commercial builds and stuff. I don't think HUD actually allows, I don't know, I haven't looked at it recently, but I don't recall HUD saying that I could penalize the borrower if their job wasn't done on time. But I might be able to penalize the builder. But then I have to collect the money, right? So it's, I'm not really a bill collector. So it's challenging because there has to be some penalty for getting done, but I think you catch more flies with honey. Mm-hmm. and pick your builder carefully and manage your projects and stay in touch with everybody. How's it going? Progress reports are really essential, right? Mm-hmm. So at the least, maybe you could require somebody to do a 15-day project report, right? So that could be internal on the lender side. My draw admin could just call them up every 15 days. That's a reasonable amount of time. You're not bothering every week because you can't do too many loans if you have to call everybody once a week. But
Yeah.
inside of a 15-day, you could probably manage enough of a pipeline to touch everybody. These are my Monday calls. And you do it alphabetical. I don't know. You could put it in Excel and figure out by last name, who do I call on what day, whatever, and just call them and get your progress report so you know where they're going. I think when people are managing pipelines of 300 or 400 loans and they have no visibility into the projects is when people get into trouble, because by the time you wait 45 days from a progress report and he hasn't done anything, you've lost 45 days.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about this is another interesting thing about the loan program is just the limitation of the amount of draws that can be made. Capping the amount of draws I always thought was an interesting, I understand why. But there may be situations where, hey, we want to keep a better eye on the property. We want to know information, prompt payment laws in various states have to keep that money flowing. And now you're kicking it out to 10 months. But like in California, you have to pay people within 30 days of doing the work, right?
Yeah.
The payment laws from owner to contractor, I think it's 30 or 45. And, you're saying people got to come out of pocket now and pay for this and they get reimbursed. And, I was shocked in the way that we see technology changing, allowing for faster payment, efficient payment, reducing the risk. Do you think it was just to keep the HUD consultants' fees in check? Hey, they're going to spend $200 or $250 or whatever the amount for the HUD consultant is to go out and inspect a property. Are they trying to keep those costs low to the consumer by reducing the inspections?
I'm not sure, because I think that I think should be at the lender's discretion and the lender and the consumer. You have a flat fee for your inspections. Every job's not going to be the same. Ideally, you would have an inspection at least every 3 weeks, right? Because that gets a payment every 30 days. So if I have 6 months to build a project, then I get paid 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, and then I'm done, right? But with limiting the amount of inspections, it pushes the interval out.
Yep.
Eyes on the ground, and it increases the probability your project's going to slow down and grind to a halt, because it removes a sense of urgency. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that would be a conversation at the front end to say, what draw schedule? Like, I don't know why we can't work out a draw schedule with the builder. Right? I don't want to pay him every week because that's more administrative costs, accounting costs for me. Mm-hmm. But I'm okay paying him every 21 days if he's working, or initiating the process every 21 days, gets him paid about once a month, once every 30 days, right? Assuming a week to get the draw done, I got to start my inspections. I got to be inspecting on the 20th of every month. And I don't know why you couldn't, I think with the right builder, if you put that kind of calendar together and said, here's your target, here's how we're going to pay you. We want to inspect on the 21st of every month and pay you by the end of that month for that work you did the weeks. I think you would get,
love that.
You'd get more motivation from your builders, because I know what I got to do. Right.
Mm-hmm. Less delays.
If I'm ahead, then I'm ahead. Mm-hmm. Right. Because then if the cash is flowing, I mean, the problem with builders, and this is not a hit against them, but they chase the money. And so I'm 90% done on this job, but I got to start this job tomorrow in order to get the contract. Well, guess what? I'm not going to finish your job until I'll get around to it, because I got to go do this other one.
Yeah. No, I love that idea. I just, it's interesting that they put the owner and even the general contractor and lender in just such a tight spot by making the payment of an extremely valuable and limited resource in the process. So you're juggling that resource. Now I got 10 months to do this, but I only got 6 inspections and I got to space them out. So even though this work's done, I can't pay you until this other guy's got his work, and it's
just complicated. It just makes it more complicated.
Maybe somebody had good intentions what they wrote that, but just never made sense to me. Never made sense. What about, this one I found interesting. We've covered about 4 of these here, but this one I found really interesting in one of the changes, and didn't know it was an actual change. Maybe you can shed some light on it, but allowing the consultant fees to be included in the financed mortgage amount on both the limited and the K. Wasn't that able to be done before?
No, you could use a consultant on limited, but you had to pay him out of pocket.
Out of pocket on a limited. And so
Right. So
it's
now,
both
now they
limited
can finance both of them. So in a sense, it opens up more opportunity for consultants.
and
But then the other side of that edge is that there aren't enough consultants. So if they start scheduling limiteds as well as standards, their workload, could dramatically increase, but we don't have more bodies to do the work. And it brings us back to our initial question of actually where does the consultant fit into this? If you're required on a standard, I mean, they have some value. Like I've worked with some customers, and because I knew the consultant, which is a whole gray area, like that I felt it would be better for them as a borrower to use the consultant to have somebody, that was there. But that's the trusted relationship. And so, I don't know all the consultants on the roster. I don't have relationships with all of them. It's always a crapshoot what you're going to get and how they're going to interact with customers and what their working style is and how much experience they have. So I think that letting them finance it on a limited can be a good thing for the people who choose to use them on limiteds. But it does increase their loan amount. It minimizes their out of pocket, but it increases their loan.
That's interesting because I was really thinking about that change. I was like, well, maybe they're letting them taking it from inside the mortgage worksheet and the renovation amount to being itemized in cost the borrower can't shop for, right? And that in turn would reduce would increase what the borrower can include under that, limited proposed $50,000 amount if those fees were outside. But I like the way that you expressed it as, hey, it's now allowing those fees to be financed if they were going to use a HUD consultant on a limited. But then I wonder why they put and standard if it was the standard was already allowable.
Yeah, I don't know, because it's always been on the worksheet for the standard.
Yeah.
Because in defense, it's weird. It's in the worksheet, but on both loans, if you get close to your limit, the consultant's fee limits how much you can build.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of fine tuning right there at the end when they get close to that maximum allowable limit on a limited. And can we take this out and have the appraiser look at it and see if it's like that bouncing back and forth? Those are the more interesting ones. Now, what about I think this one's pretty self-explanatory, with inflation being off the charts the last few years, about raising consultants' fees for the work write-up and feasibility study, the draw inspection fees, the change order fees, to appropriately compensate consultants for their role.
I like the idea of paying them a more industry standard closer to what they'd make on other kind of inspections and stuff. I only hesitate because they still have to do their job, which I don't think we've really clearly defined. And so in a sense, we're like paying them more to do something we're still not exactly sure what it is. And so that's the only reservation I have with that. I think that it's more attractive to them if they can charge more. And a lot of them, I think, like I said, there are thousands of them, and I haven't talked to most of them. So I'm sure that there are some really good consultants, bring a lot of communicative, valuable insights and business practices to their projects. So I think it's good actually to pay those men and women that are actually doing that. That are adhering, trying to fulfill the role, at least if they understand the way I understand it and they're trying to fulfill it. I think it's good to pay them more. I think that might incentivize them to do more. There's still some things like I think you have to be the HUD consultant of record to do the inspections. So that's kind of that takes the inspection firm off the table in a sense. Right? Because I can only do so much as a one-man band consultant. Whereas if I had an apprentice, my apprentice could do them. Right? I don't think HUD allows that. I think technically the consultant on record is supposed to do all the inspections.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think from what I remember, if I had to put on that hat of reading through the guidelines, I think a HUD consultant inspection. I think it may be limited to just saying a HUD consultant has to do the inspection, um, the physical site inspection, right? And
Right.
that's great that we're getting eyes and ears on the property. The price may be a little bit more than normally what you see draw inspections go out for, and the preparation of the draw request. But at the same time, I think there's some sort of project management expectations of keeping the project moving forward. Setting next steps, making sure it's on time frame, informing the lender of any issues that they find or any delays. Would be a great value add if we could start seeing consultants kind of bring that expertise to the table.
Yeah, they would just like consult and talk to us. I think,
Yeah.
and I think I would have recommended that they allow, like, if I go to Purdue, for example, and I graduated with a degree in construction technology, and I hired somebody who did that. And when I hired her, she was traveling all over the country doing punch lists on 1 to 24 unit apartments. She could have worked for a HUD consultant and gone out and done punch lists on progress inspections, right? That would give him more capacity, right? And that would help the industry because then you have more bodies to work. But like I said, I don't think HUD allows that. They want the one person to do it, which I think is a detriment to the program because there just aren't enough of them. And HUD doesn't appear to be making any kind of reasonable steps that I can see to open that up so that they can tap into other expertise to do the same amount of work.
Yeah, I think there's it's just really interesting. I think we've kind of touched on it a little bit here about how the program is different, but it's really interesting to see the comparison and contrast of the 203K program to say Fannie's Homestyle, which has really, really taken off. I'd probably say the last 4 or 5 years. Fannie, Freddie both have made some just amazing changes. And I'd say they both have surpassed the 203K loan program in desirability and understanding. And to me, it's a good example of, not to get political, but hey, you've got this program which has a ton of government involvement, right? It's got a guideline for everything. It's overly complicated. It's 50 pages long. It tells you how to do something down to some minute detail that may or may not be in the best interest of the borrower, lender, or any of the parties or stakeholders. And then you've got kind of in contrast to that, you got home style renovation, you've got home choice, you got choice renovation, you've got the USDA renovation product, the VA renovation product, which are a lot less. You could just put them on a couple pages, the guidelines.
A lot less overhead.
Lot less oversight, a lot less overhead, but they outperform. And what I mean by outperform, they get completed faster per dollar.
Mm-hmm.
They cost less to the consumer. There's less issues. And by issues, I would define loan the project needing additional time, not being completed on time is the way I would define an issue. So this program, which has tons of guidance, right? Tons of guidelines, for lack of a better term, doesn't perform as well as those that have minimal guidance. Why is that?
I think it just slows you down. I mean, just the fact that, like you said, when I used to print the 203K guidelines, just the lender portion is 28 pages.
Mm-hmm.
There's some stuff in there for appraisers. It's another 5 to 10 pages. There's a lot of guidelines and a lot of requirements, and we're trying to get to the same place. I think Fannie's approach of looking at what we're after is collateral that matches the value.
Mm-hmm.
We want to get it there as quickly as possible. And lender, this is what you need. So, while Homestyle is a full recourse loan, and that slows down the adoption by lenders, but technically it looks to me like in the last 4, 5, 7, 10 years, every loan you sell to Fannie's are full recourse loan. Mm-hmm. So this one might be a little more in your face about it because they come out and they say it, mm-hmm. but it's not. But what they require to release the recourse is not exorbitant or extravagant. So, I think that just the administration and the daunting guidelines and how-tos on the 203K slow down adoption.
If you had to get a renovation loan, which one would you get? 203K or home style renovation? Everything else equal.
Everything else equal. If I could get the same rate, I'd get a home style renovation loan. But FHA rates are better because of the bond market, right? So that's one thing.
Payment, yeah.
As far as doing the loan, I would do a home style in a heartbeat.
Why? What is
I
it?
can just go get my contractor. I can work that out. I can follow my gut. I can do my due diligence. I can look at the lender tells me. I picked my guy, my girl that's going to do the work. You know, I make all the choices. I'm owning. It's my project. I own it.
Mm-hmm.
My timeline, right? I go get my contractor. She's ready to go. I vetted her. I checked her references. She gave me numbers to call. I called the people. They told me that they'd hire her back in a heartbeat. She did a great job. She cleaned up after she left. She was very polite. She understood. She didn't try to upsell me, like questions that you'd ask. So, and then I get my bid and I move on to my appraisal. So it's a lot streamlined. I don't have a HUD consultant who's talking to me and then trying to get my contractor to send something to him and he doesn't like what she sends. And so he sends it back to her and she's getting frustrated because she's typically used to just talking to a contractor, walking through the job site with her project manager, scoping out the job, producing a bid for the work that the contractor said he wanted to have done. She did all that. But now she's got other hoops to jump through because of the HUD consultant. Right.
So what I heard there is one big word: way more efficient. Efficient.
Way more efficient. Yeah, it's way more efficient. And it puts the onus on the contractor. Like everybody shouldn't do a 203K. If you can't do what I just said, which is to go online, go out in your community, find and vet a builder that you're comfortable with, do your own follow-up background checks, make 3 or 4 phone calls, right? Even if you're just painting your house, paint a big Victorian house costs you $40,000, $50,000. You definitely want to call on the painters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, did they break down the flowers? How was the work? Did they clean up? They get paint all over your bricks? Like, what did the house look like when you were done? How long
they show up on time? Yeah, they show up on time.
Did they leave? Like, you know, did the guys that you talked to, are they the guys that came to do the work? Because I don't care if she doesn't come, if she's the general contractor, but I want to know who's going to come. So she would probably bring her foreman to meet me and say, hey, this is the job we're going to do. John's going to be here with his crew on Monday at 8. I will check in once a week or whenever. If you have something, you can call me. So there's that community. It's just more efficient. You know, I'm dealing with the person and I can do my background check. So for consumers, if you want to do a renovation loan, or you homeowners, you want to renovate your house, be comfortable picking and vetting your contractor, trust your gut, do your background check, call their references, look them up on social media, because if they're really good, they post their work on their Facebook or Instagram, Twitter, TikTok page. They post their stuff because they're proud of it.
You know, yeah.
Right? And so pick your contractor. You got to do that. At the end of the day, I may be a lender and I'll do a LexisNexis and, you know, a background check and check their public records, but I'm not paying them. I'm just holding your money to pay them. Right. So the home style is just like, I'm not against HUD consultants, so don't get me wrong. But from a project management perspective, I was always taught when you add another person, you add more time and complexity and variables. So I'm trying to minimize the time, keep it simple, and not have any variables.
I absolutely love it. You know, that is an amazing way to think about all this. And, you know, William, this has just been such a great conversation here. You know, we're nearing the end of the podcast. And one of the things that we like to do towards the end is this lightning round where we go through and ask you a bunch of rapid fire questions. And if you're game, I'll go ahead and start right now.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. What advice would you give to HUD over changes they should make to their program?
Look at the other programs and look at their successes and see where you could improve the 203K to match the successes of Homestyle in particular and Freddie's products, or even the VA Reno. Just look at the other programs. You guys should all be running the same. You're headed to the same place. You should be running down the same, in your lane, down the same road.
Oh, that's great. That's great. All right. Question number 2. If you could recommend one question that a homeowner should ask their contractor, what question would it be?
if you're working on my house, what should I expect in terms of hours, noise, quality? I've vetted you, so I know your quality because I looked at your pictures, okay, and I talked to your customers. But what's going to happen when you show up in my house? What should I expect day to day?
That's great. Go-to reference question. What's your go-to question when checking somebody's references?
Would you hire them again to do this work?
That's great. Like a lot like an interview question, right?
It's an interview question. Would you hire them again? Or I might ask, what did they do that you didn't like that just drove you crazy?
Would you ever build your own home?
I really like modular homes.
Had to open the door for modular conversations, right?
I really like modular homes. I don't know if I was going to get a new home, I would probably not. I would probably get a modular if I could. I wouldn't do a stick built unless I was way out in the country because it rains on my stuff. My house, my materials get wet. Wind blows my house, gets dusty. I wouldn't do it.
All about efficiency here. All about efficiency. Any books, podcasts, or movies that you're recommending to others?
Books, podcasts, or movies? No, not a whole lot right now. I don't podcasts. I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. I've been busy because I started as a mortgage broker last August and I've just been swamped. So if I read, it's just like beach novels, spy novels, Tom Clancy kind of stuff. Don't really watch. If I watch movies, I watch them in Spanish and German so I keep up on my language skills. And so I just try not to find too much pulpy stuff. But I think people should I think you should read. And there's, I like Jordan Peterson. I listen to his podcasts. I like, what's his name? His name falls right out of my brain. Everybody listens to him.
Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan. I like Joe Rogan's podcast. Tucker Carlson, so you can get my views, right? This is who I am.
I'm leaning to the right of my chair right now.
Yeah, like I usually get up and my right pant leg is a little shorter than my left one, so yeah.
I really like Jordan Peterson. He's one of those guys that just kind of bring a different idea to the table or to think of it from a different perspective, and
yeah,
just really does a great job laying out an argument and getting people to think about it. And I think when you think about persuasive arguments and, people that have really done a great job articulating, he's probably at the top of my list of those that can just, disarm other people and get them to really truly think about what they're debating. So
he talks to interesting people. He talks to really interesting people.
He does.
He talks to people that you don't even know that was a job. Really?
All right. Now, one of the things that I know about you that other people don't is that you love to cook. You're an amazing chef and seen a lot of your Instagram posts and some really neat stuff out there. What's your go-to recipe that you've been working on that you've been playing around with?
Let's see. So I have a new Chinese daughter-in-law. We've been teaching her how to make bread.
Ooh.
Which is really challenging because she's kind of Instagram mindset. So letting the yeast rise and kneading the bread long enough to develop the gluten is challenging. But so just a basic whole wheat bread I've been working on. Like this Christmas, I'm doing a brisket and we're just going to kind of keep it simple. We're going to smoke it, salt, pepper, probably a little bit of thyme, a little garlic, not too spicy because I really like the beef flavor. And maybe some onions to caramelize in while it's on the grill and just wrap it up and put it on the grill, in the morning. That's our Christmas Eve dinner. We have a tradition of a big meal before or after Christmas because Christmas is a big breakfast and a buffet in the afternoon, just finger foods in the afternoon. And so then our main meal is usually the day after or the day before this year. So I'm working on a brisket on my slow cook grill outside this year. And I think if people like beef, the addition of a layer of onions on the bottom to caramelize and just kind of disintegrate will add marvelous qualities to whatever you roast in the oven or on your grill if you slow cook stuff.
You think we can get that recipe and post it with the podcast here after? I'm getting a little hungry.
Yeah, I can actually film it and show the prep and everything. I tend to leave my briskets a little fattier than a lot of guys online because I'm a high fat meat eater.
Uh-huh.
And also I like the fat to render. So if I render it in a pan, then I have smoked fat that I can use for other things when I'm cooking other stuff.
Little beef tallow Beef
Yeah, I use a
tallow
lot of beef,
action.
lot of beef tallow, and I like it when it's smoked. Um,
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And if people wanted to get in touch with you, what's a great way to get in contact with you?
so I'm on LinkedIn under my name. I can tell you myself when I talk to people on the. I'm old school. I talk to people on the phone. I answer my phone. If you're a computer, I hang up. But if you're a person, I'll talk to you.
Yeah, go ahead. If you want to give out your cell phone number on the
Yeah,
podcast here.
it's 317-371-6127. Or you can email me at wbrown@nexamortgage.com.
That's awesome.
I should have a Facebook. I should get my YouTube up by the end of the year. I'm just going to be talking mostly about mortgage stuff, different kinds of mortgages, ways to work. It's stuff that consumers should have learned in the home ec class that they don't take anymore because nobody teaches home ec. So we're going to talk about some of that stuff. Um, Maybe then I'll talk more about things that I'm reading or what I think people should read. But it's just going to be really a mortgage focus for mostly like my kids are all millennials and they don't really understand the mortgage implications and how it works. They all have houses, but they don't really get options and stuff like that. So just helping people know if you're going to buy a house, what's involved. Like if you're going to do a renovation, what's involved. The dangers of DIY on some stuff. Because when the guy comes to fix it, it's twice as expensive if you'd have just paid him to begin with.
So valuable. So
Gotta know your
valuable.
limits. Gotta know your limits there, right?
Yeah, my dad was very involved, teaching me from a young age about construction and finance, and one of the things that I'm very very grateful for. But William, it's just been a pleasure having you on the podcast. I know we covered so much. This is amazing, and we'll go ahead and post your information, and hopefully we can get a link to the video of you cooking that brisket. But thank you very much for attending today.
Okay, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's good to see you. I haven't seen you for a couple of years because I've been to California pre-COVID. But it's good to see you.
Always a pleasure. We got to catch up at one of the MBA conferences soon.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one.
This podcast is intended for educational and informational purposes only and does not replace independent professional judgment. Land Gorilla Inc. makes no representations, warranties, or promises for and disclaims any express or implied warranties related to content. Before acting on any information, you should consider the appropriateness of the information as it pertains to your unique business needs.